Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today on our second Wednesday webinar of 2023. Today, we are going to be talking about how to apply for Social Security Disability Insurance or SSDI benefits. Today, in talking about that, we are first going to cover some Social Security disability basics, and then we will move to what exactly are SSDI benefits, the SSDI application process, and then finally, how an attorney can help you. A little bit about me. My name is Kaitlin Wildoner. I'm the founding attorney of Beacon Disability PLLC, which is a law firm based in Florida, where we exclusively practice federal administrative law, specifically focused on Social Security disability cases from the initial application stage through the appeals counsel stage. Before we go any further, I do also want to mention that if you are joining us on the live or if you are watching on the replay, I unfortunately cannot take questions either on the live or on the replay through comments. And the reason for that is because Social Security disability cases, everyone is different. And so for me to actually give you a good answer to your question, I would need to kind of have a dialogue back and forth with you. And so that's why if you're on the live, you'll see we'll drop into the chat now a link where you can schedule a call. And then if you are watching on the replay, that link to schedule a call is going to be down below. So like I said, if you've got questions, I'm always happy to answer them, happy to help in any way that I can. But I cannot answer them on the live or through comments. And the reason for that is just the need for a back and forth to make sure that I'm actually giving you a good answer. So if you would like to schedule a call on the live, we did drop that link in the chat. Feel free to click that, schedule a call at a time convenient for you. And if you are watching on the replay, that link is down below. Similar, feel free to call and set up a time convenient for you. And I'm happy to speak with you and see what we can do to help. Okay. Moving on to Social Security disability basics. There are two different Social Security disability programs under that umbrella. The first one is Social Security Disability Insurance. Those are SSDI benefits, and that's what we're talking about today. The other program is SSI, Supplemental Security Income, and both programs will require that you be disabled and unable to work for a period of at least 12 months due to mental or physical impairments. Where they differ is SSDI benefits have a work history requirement. Generally, we say that you have to have worked 5 of the last 10 years to qualify for SSDI benefits. And those benefits, that monthly benefit amount, is based on what you were able to pay into the system while you were working. SSI benefits, on the other hand, don't have a work history requirement, but instead they have income and asset restrictions. So currently, if you are applying for SSI, you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets if you are single and more than $3,000 in assets if you are married. That does not account for income coming into the house, which also plays a role as well. Income is a little bit less cut and dry because it depends on how many members are in the household, how many children, all of that. But just know with SSI, there are income and asset restrictions, but you don't have a work history requirement. With SSDI, there is a work history requirement, but there are no income and asset restrictions, okay? So those are the two programs, the similarities, and then where they differ. So SSDI benefits are monthly payments that are made to individuals with a disability or blindness who also meet those certain work requirements. Not everyone gets the same amount of SSDI benefits a month. Your monthly SSDI benefit amount is based on the income that you made while you were able to work and what you paid into the Social Security system while you were earning that income. You can actually get an estimate of what your monthly benefit amount would be by logging into your My Social Security account. And if you are on the live, we will drop a link to that in the chat. If you are watching on the replay, we will try to remember to put that link down below. You can also find it by Googling My Social Security account and making sure that whatever link you click on is going to take you directly to ssa.gov, which is the Social Security Administration's website. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold in the middle of a cold, not sure. But yes, so SSDI benefits are benefits paid to those that are disabled or blind under the Social Security Administration's guidelines, and they are paid based on what you were able to pay into the system while you were able to work. Who qualifies for SSDI benefits? you have to be under age 65 and you have to be blind or disabled. And again, you have to have worked and paid into the Social Security system for a set amount of time. Like I've said, we typically say 5 of the last 10 years. If you are a younger individual, kind of young 30s and younger, you may qualify with less than 5 years of work. It depends on your specific work history. So it is possible to qualify with less than 5 years, but that's typically what we say is 5 of the last 10 years. So getting into those work credit requirements, you will generally need 40 credits, which is 10 total years of work. 20 of those 40 have to have been earned in the last 10 years. So that's where we get that 5 of the last 10 years. You can earn up to 4 credits each year. And in 2023, every $1,640 you earn in covered earnings earns you 1 credit. So that means that for this year, once you've earned $6,560, you've earned your maximum 4 credits for the year, and you are insured for the year. And as I mentioned, younger individuals may qualify with fewer credits. One of the ways, if you're a younger individual and you're curious, one of the ways you can kind of get a quick answer on whether you qualify based on your work history is logging into your My Social Security account. You can go in, and if you could qualify, it'll tell you. It'll tell you your estimated monthly amount, and it should tell you, I just looked at a potential client's statement the other day. If you're not eligible, it should also tell you that you are not eligible for SSDI benefits at this time. If you are older and you've been out of the workforce for any amount of time and you're not sure, have I worked 5 of the last 10 years? Have I not? You can also log into your My Social Security account. You'll be able to see your estimated retirement benefit amount. And you will also be able to see your estimated Social Security disability benefit amount. So again, that it was an older individual whose statement I was looking at, and it did say you are not eligible for SSDI benefits at this time. So it should tell you point blank whether you are or are not insured for disability benefits. If you have that and you want me to take a look at kind of what your insured status might be as to, let's say you stopped working 3 years ago and, or no, let's go back even more. Let's say you stopped working 7 years ago. So you don't have that 5 of the last 10 year requirement, but prior to stopping work 7 years ago, you always worked full time. And right now you're 56. So it's possible that you may qualify for disability benefits, but with a remote date last insured. So there's ways kind of, and that's why I'm saying I can't answer a simple question on the live or in the comments, because there's so many factors that go into it. So again, if you've got questions about being covered, logging into your My Social Security account is going to get you a quick answer. If it says you're not covered, but you think you might be able to finagle a way in, feel free to reach out to me. I can, I think my email address is actually in the end of this as well. Feel free to reach out to me. We'll have a call. I'll send you my email address then. And then you can feel free to send me whatever you want, and I can take a look at it and see if I can determine anything from that as to whether or not you may qualify. But again, that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say it requires a back and forth, me being able to answer questions. So it's not because I don't love the questions, because I do, but I need to be able to have that back and forth with you. So here is kind of a little bit about the work credit requirements, and you can see that if you develop a disability before certain ages or at certain ages, how many years of work you generally will need. So when you submit the application, Social Security will get it, and they will go through a 5-step evaluation process. They first will look, are you currently engaging in substantial gainful activity? That means, are you working 20 hours a week or more, or are you earning more than about $1,400 a month in gross earnings? If you are engaging in substantial gainful activity, the analysis stops there. Social Security will automatically find that you cannot be disabled according to their rules because you're engaging in substantial gainful activity. If you are not engaging in substantial gainful activity, the analysis will move to step 2, which is, do you have at least one severe medically determinable impairment? If you don't, if the medical records are sparse or the medical records don't point to any severe impairments, the analysis again stops there, and Social Security will deny the case because you don't have any severe impairments. If you have at least one severe impairment, they move to step 3, and they look to see your severe impairment or impairments, do you meet or equal one of their Blue Book listings? If you do, the analysis stops there and they'll approve you for benefits, saying you meet or equal this listing based on this condition. If you don't meet or equal a listing, what then happens is the agency looks at the medical records and they come up with a residual functional capacity, or RFC, for you. And they use that RFC, again, based on your medical records and a little bit based on what you have said to them in some of the paperwork that you've filled out. And they look to see, okay, with that RFC, can you go back to your past relevant work? Can an individual with that RFC go back to what you have done historically? If you can, the agency stops the analysis there. They say you're not disabled according to our rules because you can go back and do this job that you did before. If you cannot go back to your past work, the case goes to step 5. And at that stage, they're still using that RFC that they created for you. And they're looking to see, can an individual with this RFC, your age, your education level, and your past work, can you engage in any other work? If there are other jobs that exist in the national economy, according to the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, then you will be found not disabled. If there's no other work that you can do, then at step 5, you will be found disabled. So that's a little preview into kind of a broad overview of the 5-step evaluation process. As you might have been able to hear, medical records are super important. Anybody that I talk to, I always tell them, that is important. What you are saying is, of course, also of importance, but ultimately, Social Security is going to need those medical records. They're going to need to see what the doctors are saying. They're going to like to see objective medical testing and findings. Medical records are very important during this 5-step evaluation process. All right, turning to the actual application. So what I usually recommend people do, and I think, yeah, I have it here. I like you to look at the application ahead of time. You can see the link there. We'll drop it in the chat. So that way you can click on that and totally see what is going to be asked of you. Of course, you'll need to provide basic information, your name, your social security number, your date of birth, your address. In the application, Social Security also asks for direct deposit information. So if you've got that information, the routing number and checking account number or savings account number, any marriage information, if you've had prior marriages, current marriages, and then your citizenship status, including where you were born, and whether you are a citizen born inside the U.S., outside the U.S., naturalized citizen. They'll also want to know the date you became unable to work. If you had to make changes to your work before that date, they'll also want to know that. They'll want to know your work history for the last 15 years, a list of the doctors, clinics, and hospitals that you've seen for your conditions. And we're not talking records from 20 years ago. We want records from now. So that way, if you stopped working last year, Social Security is going to want those records from a little bit, usually from before you stopped working to now. If taking the example I had before, if you stopped working 7 years ago, you're going to want to likely try to get those records from those providers now. After 7 years, it's really hard to get records from providers. We might be seeing a little bit of a shift in that with the advent of electronic health records, but historical records 7 years older or more. So right now, it doesn't seem like it, but what would that be? 2016, and earlier. So records from 2015, if you've got those, I recommend you reach out to those doctors, see if you can pull those records now, so you have them for your own records. Anything before that, Social Security is not going to find super relevant. They want to know what's going on now, what's preventing you from working now. They'll also want to know information about your income, including whether you get any state or local assistance, any TANF benefits, any VA benefits, any other Social Security benefits. And that is the link to where you can find a copy of the application. There are 3 ways right now that you can apply for SSDI benefits. You can apply online. That is the easiest, and that is what Social Security recommends. You can apply by phone, and you can apply in person or over the phone with your local office. The way I typically do it with clients with SSDI benefits, apply online. It takes about an hour. It could take more or less depending on your work history and how many doctors you have. So it can take more or less, but I usually say about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. The average is about an hour. Especially if you go through the application beforehand, if you use that link and you go through the application beforehand and you have all the information handy, it'll make it go so much faster. This is what it looks like. It might look a little bit different today. I think it looks very similar, but this was last year. But yes, so this is what you'll want to make sure, as it says up there, that you're on the Social Security Administration's website. Don't ever provide your social, your date of birth, your name, any kind of information like that to a non-governmental website thinking that you're applying for disability benefits. So just make sure that you are on the Social Security Administration's website. Like I said, this is what it looks like. And as you can see up top, the URL does have ssa.gov in it. All right, so here's what it looks like, kind of walking through a little bit about what to expect. This is what it will look like when you are looking at the first couple of pages. This is where you'll put the information about you, the applicant. And so again, your name, your social, your date of birth, your gender. Are you blind or do you have low vision? And then during the last 14 months, have you been unable to work because of illnesses, injuries, or conditions that have either already lasted or are expected to last at least 12 months or are expected to result in death? Then you'll want to put the date that you became unable to work. Social Security will want to know if you've previously applied for Social Security benefits. Right now, they're just looking at, have you done it in the last 60 days? And the reason for that is they're looking to see if, are you trying to appeal? Do you need to be appealing instead of filing a new application? Okay. All right. So as you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, those are kind of the pillars of what they're going to be looking at. Contact information is all of your contact information. Birth will ask you for your city and state of birth. If you were born outside the United States, it asks about the country that you were born in. When you get to this page, the reentry number, you'll want to print this out, or at the very least, write the reentry number down. If you have to stop and exit and save the application for any reason, you'll need this number. Without this number, you can't get back in and you'll have to start all over again. So when I'm doing an application for clients, I will usually print this page out. And that way I know that I've got it. In case something happens in the middle of it, I will know that at least we've got the reentry number, even though when I'm with a client, I'm intending to fill out the whole application right then and there. Printing this out makes me feel so much better knowing that, okay, if something happens to the internet, let's say while we're in the middle of the application, I've got the reentry number. I can at least go in and recoup some of what I've already done. I don't have to totally start over again. Additional identification information that Social Security will request are any other names that you've used, any other married names, if you've been married before, your maiden name, any other Social Security numbers that are used will also be asked for. Here is a little preview into what kind of marriage information is asked. This is if you are currently married. Okay, so we would say yes, and then it'll ask for your spouse's name at birth. Okay, so if they've changed their name over time, their name at birth is what's looking for here. Their social, their date of birth, how, when, where, and how you guys got married. It will ask for the same information about any prior marriages that lasted 10 years or more, or prior marriages that ended due to your spouse's death. And as you can see here on the right side of the screen, there are additional questions going to be about the prior marriages, any children, specifically children that are under age 19, that are still living at home and still in school, or children who became disabled prior to age 22. Military details, that's if you've served in the military before 1968, and then it'll get into employment information as well. Okay, so here is what I just talked about. The employer details that it will ask are the names and addresses of all of your employers that you worked for last year and this year. So right now they're looking at 2022 and 2023. They'll want to know your dates of employment with all of those employers, any self-employment that you had in 2022 or 2023. If you're applying in a different year, it's always going to be the year before and the current year. If you're applying like at the tail end of the year, it'll ask about last year, this year, and next year. So if you submit this application in December of this year, it'll ask about your work in 2022, 2023, and whether you intend to work at all in 2024. And I'm not positive when that shifts, when they start looking towards the next year, but I would say probably November or December. I know I noticed it with applications I did last December. It asked about 3 years instead of our normal 2. Any estimated earnings, whether you ever worked in a job where Social Security taxes were not deducted or withheld, and then a question about whether your spouse ever worked for the railroad for 5 years or more. Here's where it'll ask for the direct deposit information. Other benefit information they'll want to know, are your conditions related to work at all? Are you now unable to work? When did you become unable to work? And then also, do you have a parent who receives 1/2 of their support from you? Okay, here is where we're getting into the medical part. You'll want to list all of the conditions that are preventing you from working. So if you have more than 10, there's a box down at the bottom that you can't really see right now, but it's there, that says you have more than 10 conditions that limit your ability to work. And then at the end, which it's at the top, you can't see, but you'll be able to add remarks. And that's where, if you have more than 10 conditions that are limiting your ability to work, you'll want to add that to the remarks and say, my additional conditions include, and then list them out. Here it'll also ask for your height and your weight. Okay. I skipped the page here, but it does ask for another contact, and that is a family member or friend that Social Security can send a third-party function report to. And that third-party function report is an opportunity for that individual to tell Social Security what you deal with on a daily basis. So the agency will send you an adult function report, and they'll send that third-party function report to whoever you put in that spot, to kind of get their insight on what you deal with on a daily basis as well. Your adult function report is typically I usually say it's testimony without having to go before a judge. And I would say the same thing about that third-party function report, is it allows another person to provide insight on what is going on with you every day. Not your doctors. You don't want to put your doctors down. They'll get the medical records. You also don't want to put your lawyer down. You want to put somebody who knows what you go through every day. Spouses, kids, parents, friends, neighbors, all of that. Okay, so next you're getting into doctors, hospitals, and then it'll ask for tests and medicines, and then any other medical records that you have got. So doctors and hospitals, you want to know the names of the doctors and the hospitals. You want to know the dates that you visited, the first date you visited, the most recent date that you visited, whether you have any future appointments scheduled, whether they've prescribed any medications for you, what conditions they treat, what type of treatment they did, whether it's counseling, physical therapy, examinations, evaluations, imaging, surgery, all of that you will want to include in there. And that's so Social Security knows what they are looking for in those records, what they can expect. Tests include any imaging, any EEG, nerve conduction studies, sleep tests, stress tests. I think I said sleep studies twice, and more. So any type of testing that is done, blood work, that kind of thing, you'll want to tell Social Security about. And again, that's to make sure that they are getting a full record. When it comes to medications, you'll want to know the name of the prescription, including the dosage, who prescribed it, why are you taking it? Sometimes you may be taking it for an on-label use, and that is to be expected. If you're taking Xanax for anxiety, that's to be expected. And perhaps you are taking Xanax for something else, like heart palpitations related to anxiety, but your doctor prescribed it to you for the heart palpitations. I have no idea if doctors do that or not. That was just what popped into my head. So don't hold me to any of that. And then any side effects that you may have from the medication. Your work history and education. They'll want to know your work history for the last 15 years, including your job title, the company and the industry that it was in, the date you started, the date you stopped, and your estimated rate of pay. They'll also want to know how many hours each day and how many days per week you worked in those jobs. If you've had one job the last 15 years, the application will go deeper on what they're looking for. They'll actually want to know a lot more about that job. If you have multiple jobs in the last 15 years, they'll just want to know like this information. And then if they need more information to go deeper, they'll send you a work history report. When it comes to education, they'll want to know your highest level of education, the year you most recently completed any education, and the name of the school that you most recently completed education with. They'll also want to know if you have any additional training, if you had an IEP, those types of things, anything related to your education that may impact your ability to function, they'll want to know. And that kind of brings us to the end. After that, you'll go to the remarks section, and then that's where you'll add in anything. If you estimate anything in the application, make sure to notate that. If you aren't sure about your answer to anything in the application, notate that. If Social Security needs to follow up with you, they always can. Any extra conditions, I don't know if I said that yet, that if you have more than the 10, put them in the remarks. When you submit that, then the agency will pop up a release form. It's not really a pop-up, really. It's just asking you if it's okay for them to get your medical records, and it will basically have you electronically sign it. If you work with us, and I'm sure other law firms do the same, we will actually send them an 827 for you. The agency is still going to mail you one as well. It's fine to sign and send back, but it basically allows them to request your medical records, which, as I said before, is a very important part of the disability application process. So when you submit your application, here's what you can expect. The agency will provide confirmation of your application. They mail that out. They've been mailing it out pretty quickly. They've been really good about that. Liable to change at any time, but right now they're pretty good at providing that confirmation. Review it. When they send it to you, review it, sign it, send it back to them. If you submit your application using your My Social Security account online, you may not have to sign it and send it back, but I know that anytime we do the application for our client will get the application in a few days to a couple of weeks. They'll review it. If there are any changes that need to be made, make them, sign it, send it back. The agency will then review the application. By the way, this is not Social Security, federally. The reviewing of the application and all of that typically goes to your state agency disability determination services office. So when I say SSA, that's kind of combined with SSA and DDS, which is the state agency. So they work for the state, but they use the federal Social Security rules. They review the application. They request any medical records. They let you know if they need anything else, if they need any additional questionnaires, any additional information, any additional documentation. If they aren't getting records from providers, if they should have gotten, imaging report from this doctor, but they didn't get it, they might reach out to you and say, hey, you said you got an x-ray with this doctor, but I don't see it in the report. They said they sent everything. What's going on? And then they will ultimately make a decision on the claim and mail it to you. If you get denied, there's two kind of common denials. There's a medical reason, and that will often state that you are not disabled according to our rules. With the medical denials, if you are disabled and unable to work, appeal that decision. You've got 60 days plus 5 days for mailing from the date of the denial to appeal. When you're appealing, you can certainly reach out to a lawyer. You'll also want to make sure that they listed all of your impairments. The denial is pretty, it's just kind of a form letter, but you'll want to make sure of a couple things. And number one being that they listed all your impairments. And number two being that they received records from all of your treating sources. Sometimes I had a client the other day too, who he's like, I have no idea where this provider came from. And I look at it and I'm like, I have no idea either. The provider said they didn't have any records, which makes sense because he's never seen them. So make sure that they received records from your treating sources, all of them, and that there aren't additional records kind of thrown in there that don't make sense. Again, appeal that decision. You could do it on your own. You can hire an attorney. If it's a non-medical reason, you want to make sure it's a correct. If it's incorrect, you can appeal. Some of the most common non-medical denials for SSDI are you don't have enough work credits, or if you're still working and earning more than substantial gainful activity levels. So if either of those are incorrect, let's say you are 52, you have worked full-time and paid into Social Security since you were 22, which is 30 years, you should have more than enough credits, and Social Security comes back and tells you you don't have enough credits, appeal that. And you may want to show them your first, you want to look at your My Social Security account and make sure that they are crediting you for all of that. And if not, then you've got a bigger issue. But yes, you'll want to kind of show them that you do in fact have those work credits, and you should at least get to the medical evaluation. Okay, as promised, here's our contact information. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. We will put the scheduling link in the chat again. And if you are on the replay, feel free to click that scheduling link down below. We are happy to help in any way that we can, answer any questions that we can. If we can't help you for some reason, we do try to connect you with somebody who can. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.